World War III isn't just a frontline clash, it's a shipping blockade and an energy shock hitting the heart of the capital. If you look at Greater London through the lens of a trade collapse in the Strait of Hormuz, you might see a fragile target. That's a surface-level read. Today, we're ranking 5 hidden resilience advantages that keep London functional when the world starts to fray. We're assuming a high-intensity external shock where global logistics bend, but the local system fights to hold. Number 5. Financial continuity. In a crisis, the first thing that evaporates isn't the food, it's the ability to buy it. London is the nerve center of a global financial machine, and that gives it a level of state capacity most cities can't touch. This place is a vault built on the idea that the system must stay liquid. When shipping lanes get messy and prices for basic goods start to climb, the UK government doesn't just watch from the sidelines. They have the institutional machinery to prioritize the flow of capital, enforce price stability, and ensure that the digital payment rails stay alive. While you might see headlines about market volatility, the reality on the ground is that London's status ensures the state will move heaven and earth to keep currency moving. They know that if the ATMs go dark, the social contract follows 10 minutes later.
Most people assume a global war means your bank account becomes a useless number on a screen. That is a bad read. In a high-resource capital like this, the system is designed to absorb the shock of supply spikes by adjusting the national treasury. The proof is in the history of the UK's Civil Contingencies Act. This is a massive piece of legislation that gives the state almost unlimited power to keep the economy from snapping. You will see the effects of this as a resident through aggressive rationing of high-end goods, or even a government-stamped price tag on a loaf of bread to keep basics affordable. The caveat here is friction. While the system stays liquid, your personal purchasing power might take a hit as the state prioritizes essentials over luxuries. If you're living in the capital, your signal to watch isn't the stock ticker, it is the speed of the government's response to grocery supply chains. A practical move right now is to keep a modest buffer of physical cash, but don't bet on the digital system vanishing. It is too vital for the state's own survival for them to let it fail. Financial stability prevents a panic, but it is the physical presence of the city's massive emergency and health systems that provides the next layer of protection.
Number 4. Institutional mass. Greater London is a fortress of emergency services and healthcare infrastructure. We are talking about the National Health Service and a police and fire network that is among the most densely packed on the planet. The sheer scale of the NHS means that even under the strain of a national emergency, there is a massive, pre-existing framework for triage and resource allocation. Most cities have a breaking point where hospitals overflow and the police stop responding to calls. In London, that point is significantly further out because the system is designed for massive surges. The stabilizer here is the collective memory and training of these institutions. They are practiced in command and control structures that many other places only simulate. There's a common fear that the first sign of conflict will be the total absence of police or doctors. The better read is that these institutions will become more visible, not less. You will notice this through the implementation of local hubs, such as community centers and clinics being repurposed into distribution points. The proof is in the way the UK handles large-scale coordination during national crises. They have a centralized communication system that allows different services to talk to each other in real time. The caveat is that this mass comes with a heavy dose of bureaucracy. You might have to wait longer for non-essential care, and the streets might feel more regulated than you were used to. For a resident, the takeaway is to learn your local secondary emergency points.
These are the places that are not the main hospital, but are designated for community support. If the main systems are busy, these smaller nodes are where the real work gets done. Institutional mass can manage the people, but it cannot feed them if the island is cut off from trade. That requires a logistics engine that functions even when the world's shipping lanes are in chaos. Number 3. Logistics redundancy. London is often criticized for its just-in-time supply chains, but the UK is an island nation with one of the most sophisticated port and logistics networks in Europe. While London has its own docks, it is the connectivity to places like Felixstowe, Southampton, and the northern ports that really matters. If the English Channel becomes a high-risk zone, the UK can reroute shipping to the west or north. This utilizes a vast network of rail and motorway links to funnel goods into the capital. This is not just about ships, it's about the massive warehousing belt that surrounds Greater London along the M25 motorway. These are literal cathedrals of inventory that hold weeks or months of supplies at any given time. Don't buy into the 3 days to anarchy myth. That logic applies to isolated towns, not a global logistics hub. The stabilizer here is the ability to reroute. If one port is blocked, another takes the load, and the freight rail system gets repurposed for high-priority goods. You'll see this as a civilian through the appearance of essential ranges in supermarkets. You might not get 20 types of cereal, but you will get flour, rice, and canned goods.
The proof is in the UK's Resilience Direct system, a secure platform where the government and private logistics companies share real-time data on stock levels. The caveat is the hidden tax of price. Rerouting is expensive, and while the food will be there, it's going to cost more. Your signal to watch is the movement of heavy freight at night. If the lorries are still moving, the system is breathing. For you, the move is to maintain a deep pantry of basics so you are not the one panic buying when the news cycle spikes. Logistics keep the food moving, but the warehouses and terminals stop dead without a national backbone to keep the lights on.
Number 2, national grid priority. London sits at the top of the UK's energy hierarchy. In a scenario involving energy shocks, the UK's national grid is designed with a very specific black start and prioritization plan. The capital is treated as critical national infrastructure. This means that if power needs to be rationed or diverted, London is the last place to lose it. The UK has also spent the last decade diversifying its energy mix. It's no longer just dependent on one source. Between North Sea gas, nuclear, and a massive wind power footprint, the grid is more resilient to a single-point failure than it was 30 years ago. You might hear people talking about total blackouts, but the mechanism of the UK grid is far more granular. The better read is managed load shedding, where non-essential industrial areas might see power cuts so that the residential and administrative heart of London stays lit. The proof is in the Electricity Supply Emergency Code, which outlines exactly how the government can take control of the grid to protect domestic consumers. You will feel this as a resident because your home remains a sanctuary of heat and light. The caveat here is water. London's water system is energy intensive and faces its own stress points. If the power stays on but the pumps fail, you have a different problem. Your takeaway is to check your home's energy efficiency now and have a backup plan for water storage. The grid will likely hold, but the delivery systems for other utilities might flicker. Number 1, the walkable network. This is the ultimate London advantage. Unlike many sprawling cities that are entirely dependent on a fragile fuel supply chain for every move, London is a dense, walkable, and interconnected web. This is the strongest daily life stabilizer because it removes the fuel bottleneck from your survival equation. If petrol stations go dry because of a global oil shock, a Londoner can still get to a pharmacy, a grocery store, and a doctor on foot. The underground and the bus network are optimized for high-density movement, and in a crisis, they become the city's circulatory system. This walkability creates a level of social resilience that a car-dependent suburb cannot dream of. People often fear that a transit strike or a fuel shortage will paralyze the city. The reality is the opposite. London is built on the scale of the human stride. The stabilizer here is the village effect, the fact that Greater London is actually a collection of hundreds of small high streets that are all within walking distance of residential blocks. If the trains stop, you don't starve. You just walk 3 blocks to your local butcher or grocer. The proof is in the city's historical performance during the Blitz. The city did not stop. It just shifted to a slower, more localized gear. This walkability beats the national grid and the NHS because it is a decentralized strength. The caveat is the crowd friction. A walkable city is a crowded city, and in a crisis, the sidewalks and stations will be packed. You will feel the stress of the city through the sheer number of people trying to do exactly what you are doing. The better read is to stop looking at the car as your escape pod and start looking at your local neighborhood as your primary resource zone. Your practical task this week is to walk a 1-mile radius around your home. Find every pharmacy, every small grocer, and every community well or water source. If the world outside London goes into a tailspin, your ability to stay functional will depend on how well you know those 3 blocks. London isn't a fragile glass ornament. It is a reinforced concrete system that has survived far worse than a shipping disruption. The state capacity is deep, the logistics are redundant, and the city's very layout is a shield. If you want signal, subscribe. If you want noise, scroll. Stay sharp.